Hey, hello guys! Time for a very special video. It's been a while. I wasn't here, I was on vacation. I thought, what am I supposed to show you and to teach you here? And for a long time I haven't showed you something so attractive, at the same time popular. It's a top-notch line, and I believe it's one of the refutations of currently one of the most I don't know, simply most common options by white. Lately it's first move b3. It's called Nimzo-Larsen opening, thanks to Nakamura, who's been using that for the last couple of years. It became very popular. There are like a whole bunch of other GMs. You even have a nice course on Chessable by Ediben and so many other guys who actually did this b3 stuff, and it's time to really do something against it. I tried the following approach in my bullet and blitz games, and it works perfectly fine. Actually, it's far from working perfectly fine. It's almost killing White's game. Then I also realized that Grandmaster Avroch gave his extensive analysis about that move. So I did. Also, one of my students, Michael, told me, Maya, that line that you want to teach me, I am already familiar with it because one guy published it on the YouTube, and you know, if somebody already published something, I always want to be fresh. I always want to be, you know, like up to date. And basically, it's time to show you killing systems against Nimzo-Larsen. Let's go. After first move b3, e5. I would like to remind you of the fact that I already have two videos on my channel against b3. One is with e5, bishop b2, knight c6, and after e3, I explained you to go with knight f6. So when these guys go with bishop b5, I explained you to play bishop d6, and you can find a lot more about this system in something about this video. I believe I made it like 3 years ago for black, and it's still very popular. It's still working good, and it's really working well in the practice for black. Then another video I made very recently, I spoke about a5, and that one is very interesting. That one is one of the most ambitious and definitely the most efficient ways of fighting against b3, but today's video is going to be an absolute banger. So after like b3, e5, bishop b2, knight c6, time to check not only the main line with e3, but there are so many deviations when you play like this. So talking about these deviations, I just want to show you what happens, for example, when they play c4, knight f3, and g3 in this position. Those who play g3, what do we have? We have a double fianchetto, something that reminds us of hype opening when you play with white and they go g6 and b6. Here they go b3 and g3. So what are we supposed to do? Well, we're supposed to get the center, and when they play bishop g2, I'm opting for this bishop e6. What I like about the system that I'm about to teach you is it's very, I would say, a straightforward system. It's very easy for following. It's very easy for playing. You're all the time following a very simple attacking ideas, and I'm pretty sure that your opponents should have lots of problems with it. So what is it all about? After bishop e6, let's say they go d3, and it makes sense to go with d3 rather than e3, because when they play d3, at least they're not weakening the light squares on the king side. You play queen d7, whatever they do, for example knight f3, attacking the pawn on e5 and threatening knight g5 to go after your bishop, you anyways go with f6, and it's not about preventing knight g5 only. You also want to go with a long castle, and afterwards to do the typical pawn storm like in the dragon, g5, h5, h4, and a nice straightforward attack on the king side. So they just go with knight e2, you go h5. Very logical move. You just go with h5. And if I tell you, you gotta play h5 here, you're not supposed to play f6 or long castle, no. No, that would be too much. I'm just explaining you that whether you play f6, whether you play long castle or h5, it's part of the same plan. So here we're not working only like a very specific sixth move h5. Other than that, you're just going to resign your game, or you won't be able to come up with any advantage. No, of course. You just go with h5, and afterwards you just want to go with the attack. But if you play long castle or f6, I believe you don't have to play f6 if they're not going to play knight f3 and to attack the pawn. But from another point of view, you anyways have to play f6 sooner or later, because you would like to go with g5 and to even support your attack. So after like h5, what I like about this thing is that you want to break with h4. But if they play h4 themselves, then you go with the knight h6. And here, black just wants to put the knight on g4, wants to play f6, would like to complete its development with a long castle, possibly bishop c5. If you ever play e3 with the knight on g4, I can even consider some bishop e3, like in knight or sacking the piece, taking by knight, and if you play queen e2, I'm taking on c2 and having such a great compensation and material gain. Otherwise, I'm just going to go after the bishop. If nothing of these works, I'm going to play knight g4, f6, long castle, and then I want to play f6 and g5, breaking on the king side. A very simple game for you. So that's how you're supposed to play. From another point of view, let's imagine they go with e3. e3 just makes so many weaknesses on the light squares on the king side. Once again, we should be going with h5. And once again, I'm going to bring back to my words from previous, position. Yes, you still can play queen d7 and then h5, but I like immediately to pose, kind of a troubles to these guys by playing h5 immediately, because I want to push my pawn up to h4. If you allow me that here with h3, I'm going to play h4 and play f5, opening up the game and getting a great position. For example, like this, and then move the queen and play the long castle. Or if they go knight e2 themselves, then h4, I'm about to having a great position. I want to play h takes g3. I want to play h3. I want to keep it there to keep the tension by playing queen d7 long castle. They're in already difficult situation. So basically, after like e3, h5, probably they have to go with h4, but I very much like placing my bishop on g4. And when they go with knight e2, just go queen d7. And I keep provoking you to play f3. If you play f3, yes, you're going to kick my bishop away. It's not a big deal. I'm going to go back, and then you're going to have terrible bishop on g2. You're going to have problems. I'll play long castle. I still can play knight f6, but I'd rather go with f6 to lock and to absolutely misplace the bishop on b2 and its activity. I want to go with the knight h6, want to go with knight f5, and controlling everything on the king side like this. Just like I'm saying here, I'm not teaching you very concretely what to do, but I'm actually telling you and showing you plans, which I believe is way more important. Another thing that I've been facing in bullet games like crazy is knight f3 here, third move. It's nothing that special, but I'll be honest with you. I took here engine approach, and after playing all these games, sometimes I always almost played e4, and I realized that I had to go with e4, and then when they go with knight to d4, what I like about this, the following approach, engine approach, by the way, is that whether they jump with the knight on d4 or e5, you just take and play the same fashion. So it doesn't make much difference. They go knight e5, you take, play d5, placing your bishop on f5, queen on d7, pawn on h5, or you even have another type of idea, chasing that bishop away with knight f6 or knight h6, knight goes to g4, chasing the bishop away, and like this. That's one plan. But I believe that going with the plan with For example, I'm going to put it with yellow. Bishop f5, queen d7, and h5 is just way easier for you. After knight d4, you just take on d4, bishop takes d4, d5, and now most of these guys play e3 or d3. It's pretty much the same. On d3, you have a very specific line where I won a couple of bullet games. You kick the bishop away with tempo, and after bishop e2, boom, you sack the pawn. I apply this idea. Somehow, when I play these bullet and blitz games, I like to sack these pawns for initiative. And it's not too difficult to find it. You just go with this. Your knight goes on g4 and f5, and you're just going after the e3 pawn. They have so many weaknesses. You want to play bishop d6, queen h4 as well. And it's very difficult to defend this position. If e3, you just go bishop f5. And when they play, like, for example, d3, you just go with h5. I just have to tell you that instead of d3, most of my opponents went for bishop e2. And then I checked within engine because I hit not problems, but all of a sudden I noticed that all these guys who played against me in bullet games, they just went for this plan, and they just went for this b3, early knight f3, third move, and I just wanted to see what was that special about that one, and do they have anything that promising for white, or I'm just going to kill them if I learn the analysis properly. And then I realized that we should be going with d5, bishop f5, queen d7, and h5. Actually, be careful with that queen d7. Why? You play h5. That's an important move. And when I play this move, most of my opponents have lots of problems. Of course, they can't take. I even had one game where the guy captured, I played queen g5, and he was just collapsing. Even if g4, you can even consider rook h5 with almost on the spot winning position. That's so nice, so they can take it. And when I play h5, most of these games against me, they just go with h3. And they don't have, or they realize they're not supposed to take on h5, and now they're wondering what am I supposed to do and how to play this position. Well, this is a very nice game. This is a very nice position. I usually push my pawn up to h4, not immediately, but a little bit later. I like having my queen on g5 attacking here, and then they're having problems. They can't play long castle, short castle, because bishop h3 wins the game. If they play king f1, then they have a terrible king. And then they just realize all the difficulties of this position. If they play g3, I can easily go, for example, with the bishop at d6 and going after the g3 pawn. I can consider sacking it there, and so many other stuff. You can play rook g1 because of bishop h3. And if they play king f1 for the rest of the game, they will have terrible king. I always can consider placing and putting my king in safety, going with some h4 if needed, going with rook h6, rook g6, going with, for example, a knight f6 and somewhere, playing bishop d6. I would always put my king, not just to put my king in safety, but actually to get like the activity of the rook on d8 as well. And of course, I'm not interested in the pawn on a7 because they have more difficulties to defend this position, especially king on f1 and pawn on g2. And I just showed you what happened in like zillions of my bullet games. I found that lots of these guys, they just want to avoid this idea with c5, or simply to be kicked away with c5 by black. And here I'm still opting for h5 idea, queen d7. But why did I tell you previously, and why did I state, like, be careful with that queen d7 and long castle? Because in some of these lines, playing queen g5 is of great importance, not only because it goes after g2, but at the same time it defends the pawn on g7. So if you ever play g3, I'll play h4, and I'm breaking everything. I want to go some knight f6, knight g4. I want to go rook h6, rook g6 if you play, for example, king f1. And that's why I enjoy these positions so much. Also, I'm enjoying rook h6, rook g6 ideas. Reminds me of some French positions where black has lots of problems here. White has lots of problems. Anyways, after knight f3, e4, knight e4, you take, play d5, and once again punish them d3 with c5 and d3. Well, on e3 you play bishop f5, queen d7, h5, long castle, and you just play thanks to a way better game on the king side and inability of your opponent to defend king side properly because there is no knight around the king. Okay, now you know it. Another thing is c4. C4 I solved by analyzing Vladimir Kramnik's games. I was checking how does he play these positions, and I realized that he wins every single game by playing knight g on e7. At first glance, to me, it looked pretty stupid because, like, why would I play knight g on e7, locking my bishop on f8 and not knight f6? Well, it's not like that. When you play knight g on e7, you keep an option. For example, there was one game, I believe in Tata Steel or Gibraltar Masters. The guy went for e4, and Jordan Van Forest, actually European Championship, individual European Championship in Romania this year, and Jordan Van Forest played knight g6. And now all of a sudden, this guy had terrible bishop on b2, and he can't play d4, otherwise would just win the bishop pair in control of the dark squares. So after g3, bishop c5, bishop g2, d6, and once again you go with h5. Once again you go with that h4 idea. If he plays h4, you're gonna stick your bishop here. If he plays f3, you go back, but then this bishop is a monster in this diagonal, and so many other things. In the game was knight c3, h4, bishop g4, he sacrificed a piece, put it there. On g4 he has queen h4 with mate, b4 bishop d4, played knight f4, and with an amazing attack for black, and eventually, not even too difficult, he managed to win this game because there is like complete collapse of white strategy after knight f4. 13 moves with black pieces, Jordan was completely winning. And then I realized that in most of these games, white plays either e3 or even knight c3 against me. If knight c3, a very simple plan. I'll show you a game of Kramnik against Piotr. So Kramnik played e5, c takes, knight takes, e3, he plays bishop e6, and just like you see, he doesn't have problems. He's always following the most logic, but at the same time very attacking setup. So f6, queen d7, long castles, placing the king in safety. Grishchuk against Ivan Ishevich, played in one title Tuesday, but I checked this, of course. Everything what I'm showing to you is just checked on the engines. Knight c3, bishop c3, g5, king b8, rook g8, and he went all in onto the king side and came up with an amazing attack and won the game. A very lovely thing. Ivanishevich played b5, knight e7, d4, e4, f5, knight jumps on d5, queen goes on e8, and after bishop here, captured, played h5, and killed white. What a beautiful way of attacking on the king side. And that's why I'm telling you this Leela Gambit. But actually, I'm about to talk about the Leela Gambit. It's not yet. The whole approach against b3 is under very big suspicion for white players. Anyways, Kramnik played king b8, Piotr played rook c1, Kramnik played g5, he's not hesitating, playing h5, and now he can push g4. So what is he going to do? There is a famous idea, I believe I learned that idea from the game of Michael Adams with white pieces against Keres attack like 20-25 years ago. And here, Kramnik just applied it. He can't push g4 because h takes, and the rook on h8 would be hanging. So what is he doing? He's playing rook h6, overprotecting on f6, and at the same time protecting his rook by the bishop. So now he wants to play g4 because the rook would be protected. Piotr played bishop b5, and Kramnik came up with very nice tactics, going for the knight b4. This is the, let's say, drawback of playing blitz games, because you can make these kinds of mistakes. After queen c4, c6, c takes b5, took another pawn and won the game with the bishop pair being up to pawns. A beautiful blitz game by Kramnik. And finally, if they play e3, does it change anything in our plan? No. You just go with d5, c takes, knight takes, a3. And what are we going to do? Are you going to play bishop e6 or f6? Absolutely makes no sense. Kramnik against Vatoshko played f6, bishop e6, queen d7, and you know what? if you sit and wait, play queen c2, d3, bishop e2, knight c3, whatever, I'm just going to go with a long castle, g5, and I'm going to do the pawn storm on the king side. If he goes for d4, then it's a different thing. Once again, we're going to apply the same thing. e4 with tempo and f5. What are we doing here? We're actually playing against the French reversed. They have, like in French, with the black pieces, they have problems with this bishop. And they have this pawn structure like in the French, like f7, e6, d5 pawns. This is f2, e3, and d4. Here, you have a full control of the center, and all you want to do is to break on the king side, on the break, on the dark square somehow. Kramnik played bishop d6, and boom, sacked the pawn and got a completely winning position. After Vetoshko played f3, sorry, knight e4, f takes f3, castles, played knight c3, bishop d5, and Kramnik he's great in execution, like in execution, in realization. He's been always like one of the historically top players when it comes to realization. Look at the way he was finishing off his opponent, and he took on f3 and won the game a few moves later. After we checked all these variations, time to check the most important thing, e3. And when we come to the e3 point, I'm about to show you a really top-notch thing against the Nimzo-Larsen thing. And Nimzo-Larsen variation with the following line, d5, which for decades has been one of the main approaches by black, but also was one of the main hopes by white players who used to play this system, because after they played bishop b5, it was under such a big, a suspicion, because they threatened to take on e5. So if you start defending with bishop d6, then f4. If you start defending with f6, then f4, and so many other things. And they are just having problems with the center. I'll be honest with you. I played against international master Perunovic. I believe I was 15 years old, so it was like 30 years ago. I lost like a patter in 14 moves with the black pieces because I didn't know how to handle the center, and I didn't know how to defend the center. But before that, once again, if g3, go with h5, and you're already familiar with this kind of things and ideas, and just break it there. If they go any h3, of course, any h3, you just go with h4 and f5. Any h4, you just go knight h6, bishop g4, and finally, time to check the Leela Gambit. What's so special about the Leela Gambit? They threatened to take the pawn on e5. So, just like I told you, I lost a game when I was young against an experienced IM who knew his stuff and who just wanted to take me unprepared, and I just went for that e5. I played some f6 or bishop d6, f4, and lost everything. And I even have a friend from Bosnia, Brkic Mustafa, who won zillions of his games with the white pieces playing like this. Because black doesn't know how to, simply hold the pawn on e5 and how to handle with the center. Well, it's time, and it's the moment of truth, because Leela found an amazing knight e7 move, sacking the pawn on e5, and doubling knights like this. Ever since Leela played this game in a computer chess against another engine, everything changed. The complete assessment of the line changed. So what are you actually doing with this one? They simply have to take it. If they, for example, play knight e2, not taking the pawn on e5, you just play e6, you recapture by knight, you win the bishop pair, you now have like a strong center, e5 and d5, you have open bishops, and you have an amazing control of the center. Game is so easy for playing with the black pieces, and I don't want to teach you to play chess. I'm just here to show you what are you supposed to do and how to play these type of games. So another thing is knight f3. Knight f3 is just going after the pawn on e5, so you have to go with e4. Whether they go knight e4, knight e5, you're just going to play a6 next. So after like a6, captures, once again you won the bishop pair. The only hope for them could be this good bishop on this diagonal, but it's not enough. They don't have the knight on the king side. They have problems with the light squares. They don't have the light square bishop. We do have a bishop there. And I've got nothing against this position and to play it with the black pieces, because they will, in practice, they have lots of problems, and they should have lots of problems with the, for example, plans such as bishop e6, bishop d6, short castle, or bishop e6, queen d7, and stuff like that. Even h5 is interesting here. And that's why in this position they simply have to take it, and they simply have to take the bite. So basically they gotta grab this pawn, and this is the point of the line. After they grab the pawn, they grab the pawn in the center. They grab, not only that, they're up materially, now they're up a pawn, and we have to be very precise. So we sack the central pawn, forgetting the bishop pair, because when we play e6 they can't move the bishop anywhere because we're gonna win the bishop on e5. They gotta take, and now we recapture by knight. All of a sudden they once again have to lose tempo with the bishop, while at the same time we've just won the bishop pair. The game is open, and they're wasting so much time for the taken pawn. They have two options, bishop b2 and bishop g3. Simply, if I have to compare what do they play more against me, they play a little bit more bishop b2. Then I checked databases online, and definitely in an online chess people tend to play more bishop b2. Let's go. Either go with bishop g3. Knight f3 is not an option. You just take queen g5, get a pawn back with a bishop pair, open game, and weak light squares. Black is so much better. So they go bishop g3. I'll show you bishop b2 as the main option a little bit later. Two moves you have to remember. First, you're chasing away the bishop with h5, going like this. They gotta play h4, and no one ever played any h3 against me. h3 is maybe, if you ask me, maybe is even more interesting than h4, but position is already dubious for white. Because if they play h3, you go h4, and after bishop h2, you go queen g5. And they gotta play king f1, and I play bishop f5. And this is exactly the point of this system. I'm about to play long castle, and I just want to play with the bishop pair, with a strong light squares, because I have a possession of the light square bishop and they do not. I want to play the long castle, and they have problems with the terrible king, and somehow packed these pieces on the king's side. They're absolutely weak. So if you ask me, I'd be very happy to play this game with black all the time. And I'm winning most of these games. Of course, there are games when you lose because you plunder a queen, or you're tired, or I don't know what else is happening, or somebody called you, or you're just having a phone call, some sort of emergency. But basically, and objectively speaking, black is so much better. After bishop h3, h5, they gotta go with h4. They have to stop it. In the next move, you have to remember, it's d4. A lovely thing. And I played like a whole bunch of games in this position. I'm not going to insist so much on this position. I just need to show you what's happening here. After you play d4, you're not allowing them to get space, and somehow you're pressuring them. Whether you want to push your pawn to d3, whether you want to keep your pawn on d4, keeping the tangent in the center, or just sometimes taking on e3. At the same time, you're enjoying the privilege and the advantage of the bishop pair. And finally, you would like to stick your bishop to g4, because if it comes there, you'll never be able to move it. I want to show you a game of Serbian champion and European champion Injic. Injic in this game played against Robertson, knight f3. Robertson, he's an IM, pretty good IM, played against Injic d3. Injic played bishop g4. Robertson played f3. Injic played bishop b4. Look how nicely he's actually taking advantage of his bishops. King f1, and Injic took on e3. He already got a material back, got a pawn back. Robertson took on g4. Injic played queen f6, won the rook, and afterwards won the game. And now tell me, beating up a good IM. Robertson is really good IM. I've been following that guy, and he knows his stuff, especially with the white pieces. He absolutely got demolished with the black pieces in 13 moves. Okay, Injic is a fantastic player, but still. So, another thing. Knight f3. Knight f3 happens in most of my games. And now I'm going to show you an interesting thing. You play bishop g4, stick your bishop there, pin the knight and the queen. Once I had a game with short castle, and I won with bishop e7, where I just want to play queen d7, long castle g5. And what's the problem? Problem is that the pawn is on h4, and that the bishop is on g4, and you never should be able to kick that bishop away. So you're forever, I should say, you're forever, forever gonna be forced to suffer because of that bishop on g4 and inability to kick it away with h3. So rook e1, queen d7, long castles, and then play g5, h4, and kill this guy. Another thing that happened in one of my games, one of my opponents played queen e2 here. Queen e2 like, I'm going after your king, Maya. I want to kill you. I want to play takes d4, and I'm already up a pawn. And I'll be honest with you, I won that game and played something like queen d7, bishop e7, or I don't remember. I won the game, but I felt some sort of I don't want to say problems, but it didn't go as smooth as I wanted to go. And then I checked on the engine, and I was like completely shocked. I like and I enjoy these type of following original moves. Da-da-da-da, rook h6. So you can't give check because I'm gonna go with rook e6 and you're losing the queen. I'm involving one more piece into the center, and maybe I can even go on f6 if I need it, or just e6 going after the queen. And then I learned it, and I was very happy when I used this rook h6 idea in a couple of my blitz games. And finally, if e4, and that happened to me in a couple of games, I just applied the idea of breaking them immediately and not giving them possibility to somehow, I would say, create kind of a fortress that we're going to be able to, we won't be actually be able to easily break. And this is so nice. Now you threaten knight d4, now you threaten so many things, even bishop c5. You don't even have to take the pawn back. You can just play for good outposts in your game and for the full control of the game afterwards. And finally, after d4, knight e2, it's the most flexible approach, and it's the best according to the engine, because any bishop g4 should be faced with f3. And now you're probably wondering, so what are we supposed to do now, Maya? Don't give us bad analysis. Well, have I ever? So after like bishop d6, this is the point. You're exchanging the dark square bishops. On e takes d4, you're just taking, they take, and you take on d4. Now you get a pawn back. I mean one pawn back, because you were at some point 2 pawns back. And after like c3, kicking the knight away, queen e7, you just go with this. And after this, knight f5. I had a bullet game like this. I managed to win, even though I believe they still have some sort of, I would say, solid defensive chances to defend this type of the game. But definitely, if there is initiative in a game like this, it should be on my side. And another thing is bishop d6, queen d6, and let me just show you something. E takes d4 is the only move. If knight e4, you just take, and bishop g4. That's a nice point, because after f3, you play long castle. That's a very lovely thing. So they don't have a way to take because you play like this and play rook e4. Once again, I learned that the harder way. I even believe that I lost one game like this. It was a game with mutual chances on both sides. And I just said myself, I gotta check this one, because lately when I don't play blitz, and when I don't have time to play blitz, or simply nerves, or when I just want to have some fun, I do what I actually forbid to my students. I play bullet games. But I did do bullet games more for fun and to just check some of these lines on, of course, hidden accounts. And after like rook e4, I learned this, that I can play after knight e4, take, play bishop g4, sneaking this bishop around the king, provoking f3 and long castle. And then when I learned this, I just realized that it's very difficult for a white to defend this position. So many pieces are simply storming on the white's king, and they don't have a way to defend. On e takes d4, you just go bishop g4, and after f3, long castles. Position is with pretty much the same ideas, and black just has an amazing initiative once again. And finally, all this stuff you can check by yourself Don't worry, I absolutely have no problems with that. And finally, bishop b2. On bishop b2, I'm just going to give you a couple more moves, and then you'll have to figure out yourself what to do in these type of games, but I just have to tell you that your position already looks amazing. First move that I have to do is queen g5. What's so special about queen g5? Well, queen g5 threatens this pawn, and to cut the story and to make it easier for you, your next move almost always has to be queen g4. Now you would say, well, Maya, are you sure if I play bishop f6, would you still play bishop g4? So let me just show you what's happening here. You play queen g5, threatening the pawn on g2, and they have king f1, g3, or queen f3. I played against all these moves. There is no big difference. Knight f3 is nothing. You just take, and it's not good for them if they go for mess, because we have the bishop pair. We have an open game. They have a broken pawn structure. They have weaknesses on the light squares, and they have a weak exposed king on e1. Black is just so easily better. If they go with g3, you play bishop g4. They don't want to play knight e2 because of bishop f3. So when they play f3, you just go back, and what did you do after that? Well, you've just weakened the pawns and the king on e1 and the pawns and everything, and I want to play long castle followed by h5. I don't want to go too deep with this stuff. It's just important for you to give you like the basic things. And by the way, you know the golden rule. If you want to get like more and deeper analysis, you just have to ask me for the PGN. I'm selling those kinds of stuff. And finally, if instead of g3, they go king f1, you once again go bishop g4, and after knight f3, f3 you just go back and you play long castle with great compensation. Once again, weak king on f1, bishop pair, open files, and definitely great compensation for black. If knight f3, you just go queen h6. Not queen h5 because they have a tempo when the queen is on h5. I don't want to bother you now with that. They have h3, king g1, and then g4 with tempo. So basically queen h6, and when they play h3, you just play long castle. I don't want to bother you now with these positions, but let's once again discuss very much same thing as previously stated. Queen that is going all over the board. Bishop on g4 that is untouchable. King on f1 that is definitely weak. Inability to play because the bishop pair advantage is on our side. They have problems, and certainly when you play with the white pieces, I'm going to do some sort of experiment. I'm going to flip up the board. Don't tell me that you'd be happy to play a game like this. It's certainly not what white players expected out of the opening. And finally, if they go with queen f3 move. Queen f3 is what happened in most of my games, and that's something that I just want to analyze a little bit deeper than anything else. Bishop g4, of course, that's the main move. If they play queen f4, you just take, and you just play knight b4, threatening to take on c2, knight a3, long castles. They can't play long castle, that's the point, because of the bishop. I want to play rook e8, and by dragging the knight to b4, which I used in a couple of my bullet games, I'm just forcing their knight to be on the rim of the board, and there is like complete disharmony in white's position and pieces. So they have to go with queen g3. When that happens, first tempo move, and I played a couple of games queen g6, even with good results. And then I realized what's so big difference between queen f5 and queen g6, because with both we're moving the queen. Queen on f5, we're just, I don't know, what should be such a big difference? And it's so normal to play queen g6. Well, it's not. Queen f5 is just a little bit better move. So what's so special about queen f5? Once you play h3, I'm gonna be able to put my bishop on h5, and now you wouldn't be able to exchange my queens. So when you play queen g7, I'm not gonna play long castle because of some queen h8, for example, ideas, or g4 ideas. So I'll play rook f8, and now you can play g4 because I'll take on c2, and we can go with some crazy stuff. And I just have to tell you that knight b4, knight d3 comes very, very nasty against white pieces, and this is like so good. And that's why after we go with the queen f5, most of these guys against me play d3. When they play d3, they've just weakened the pawn on e3. And that's a big thing. And in order to be able to go after that one, you gotta go long castle. And you just want to go with rook h to e8 and bishop f4. That's so special about this one. They usually play h3. If they play something like knight c3, rook e8, knight g2 d4, they're just collapsing because the king is exposed and it's weak. h3, you just go bishop h5, not allowing them to play castle. That's another thing, and that's another point. And once again, we got to repeat what's so special about having the queen on f5, because they don't have a way to play queen g5. To exchange queens. And queen g5 is not working because you take and give check. That's how I won also a couple of bullet games. So after like h3, bishop h5, knight c on e2, finally they're just hoping for castle. You just go d4. Once again, you're opening up everything. e4, bishop b4, queen c5, and you just want to go with this bishop here. c2 is hanging, king is just weak, and they're just collapsing. Even f5. I mean, sacrifices all over the board, and they can defend. Rook c1 is not an option because of the thing that I just showed you, bishop d2 and bishop e3, sneaking around and just sticking that bishop to e3. Just like you see, they gotta play h3, bishop h5. In couple of my games, queen g5 happened, bishop g3, and this is like so much better with d4, and they're just collapsing. Well, in the case of knight f3, you play rook h to e8, and they collapse. Why? Now, we're not only threatening rook takes e3, but we're also threatening bishop f4. So after like king d2, I found this analyzing, being actually analyzed by Evrock in his analysis. He said rook to e3, but it's pretty easy blow to find, because after rook e8, actually, the point is now you have bishop f4, but probably the guy who played the game didn't see this one, but actually he had rook e5 with completely winning position because of the weak king and weak queen. Guys, don't get me wrong, but actually if you take a look at the analysis that I just showed you, you're not worrying anymore playing against Nimzo-Larsen and b3. These are absolutely the most crushing ideas against b3 I know so far, and at the same time it's so popular still, so it works perfectly fine. There's always something, and from time to time people tend to find something and to find refutations, but I'm going to be so optimistic about this position for black that I can easily tell you now, I don't know what is white going to find to defend this position and to fight against Leela Gambit. Thanks to Leela and thanks to engines, b3 is almost refuted. Thanks for watching the lesson, and see you next time.